Hey, remember when there was a lower bound on multiplayer game player counts and it was 4 people?
You mean like Duke Nukem or like Left 4 Dead?
Well, I mean, original Doom multiplayer was 4 players, right?
I think only for Modem or Dwango, whatever. Well, you know what? No, you're right. It might have been 4 players on the LAN too.
Well, I only played Modem. I can't say for sure, but 4 players, good even number of people to include in your multiplayer game.
Yeah, and like for the first time in my life, I successfully transitioned a group of people that I play games with from one game to another game.
Ooh,
because basically stopped playing PUBG and started playing Fortnite. And every other time I've done that, like when my EverQuest guild went from EverQuest to WoW, like 40% of the people just kept playing EverQuest forever, right?
Yep.
And then it all kind of like it falls apart and you reshuffle and you end up with some of the same people and some new people. And
good old little community schism.
Yeah, Team Fortress, Halo 2, Quake World, Quake 3, all of this has happened multiple times in my life.
Hey, you know what all those games have in common? They all accommodate 4 or more players.
That's true.
What is up with this trend lately of multiplayer games capping at 3 people?
3 people makes a lot of things easier in terms of matchmaking. So remember when we talked a few months ago about or like a year ago now, I guess, about matchmaking algorithms and why it's complicated and hard.
It wasn't that like 2 months ago.
I don't know. It's like an indeterminable period of time in the past. But 3 people. Well, so first off, with 4 people, 4 people's bad for like harassment and vote stuff. So you can't really do like vote to get rid of somebody who's being an asshole in a 4-player game.
Sure, because
you can't get a majority. Basically, it's really hard. Like most of the states end up in a draw. Like if it's 2 people and one person's being a jerk, two groups of 2 people and one person's being a jerk on one team, then the other person's not going to vote to kick them. And the person who initiated the vote is always a vote for kicking. And the person who's threatening to be kicked is always a vote against kicking. So you end up with like a bad last episode of a reality show situation where the other 2 people, if they don't agree, nothing happens.
Sure.
So 3 players solves that problem because then you have the kicker and the kickee and the other person has to decide, oh, this person's an asshole or this person's not an asshole. Solves that problem.
Yeah. You're seeing it even in like PvE games like Remnant 2 capped at 3, like Space Marine 2 just came out. That's 3 players. I mean, should we just blame Destiny for this?
I assure you there's still malicious actors in co-op PvE and PvPvE games.
Yeah.
But yeah, it started with Destiny. Destiny did the math. And the other thing about it is the matchmaking algorithms are a lot easier because you can match singles with like the most common people, like types of groups in matchmaking queues are almost always duos and singles.
That makes sense.
So if you can pair them up and you get those cohorts together, then it makes the rest of it a lot easier. So anyway, but yeah, I'm fine blaming Destiny on this too.
Okay, well, I find it's a safe bet to blame Destiny for most things.
But like Destiny, Apex,
Apex,
all of the Warhammer co-op stuff is 3-player, I think.
Yeah, it's just rough if you've got a gaming group of 4 people. Let's say.
You gotta look. This is when you got to stack rank your friends and you got to decide who is number 4, right? Like
the last time this came up, I thankfully was just kind of busy.
Okay,
Dark and Darker was the last time this came up with people I play games with.
Yeah,
that's another 3-player.
That one seems like it could expand to 4 though.
Yeah, maybe so. I was just like, I've got stuff to do tonight. I'm probably not going to make it anyway. You guys have fun.
As somebody with a type 4, often if we want to play a 3-player game, one of us will sit in Discord and kind of hang out while the other person, while somebody else is streaming to them.
Sure.
Which is, this is the world we live in. People just hang out and watch people play games now.
Yep. All life through the internet.
Welcome to Brad and Will Made a Tech Pod. I'm Will.
I'm Brad.
Brad, I'm sitting here. I'm looking at this Fuser update, and I don't know what to think. Like, Fuser, for people who don't know, has found a real second life in Fortnite.
Wait, Fuser has? I mean, obviously, Harmonix got bought by Epic, and they are doing like Rock Band style stuff in Fortnite. But how does Fuser tie in?
look, I'm not going to try to cook the books here, but I'm going to say that next time there's a Nextlander patrons choose thing, everybody should vote for Fortnite, because when you're having a Fortnite battle royale game right now, you can hit your emote button and choose to just say drop the bass line from I'm Just a Girl.
Oh, there's like individual stems that you can use?
Fuser ass fuser.
Oh, wow.
And you can do, so it doesn't have the thing where it like gives you the indicator of where the beats and the drop-ins and all that stuff are, but it does let you pitch shift and tempo shift. And you can do like 4 bass lines, you can do 4 vocal lines, or you can do
4 separate bass lines?
4 like 4 people, each person can bring their own bass line.
Oh, I see.
And yeah. So it's just it's the songs that you have bought to get access to in their Rock Band mode, like their standalone Rock Band mode. You also get the jam track stems for that. So you can make, like, we made really kind of good mashups. You can also do absolute music crimes, like horrible stuff.
Of course, man, that's devious that I didn't to make the songs they're selling for the Rock Band stuff. And again, we're just using Rock Band as shorthand here. They don't call it Rock Band, but you know what is it? Fortnite Festival.
Yeah.
Right. But like to make those also sort of cosmetic emote type objects of desire at the same time. So now people are buying songs that don't even care about Fortnite Festival just so they can drop the bass in their actual Fortnite. That's insidious.
I haven't played Fortnite Festival in a month, but I bought 2 songs the other day specifically for trolling purposes. So
hey, that's a noble use of funds. But weird, they're updating actual Fuser in Steam. What is that about? I wonder.
I have no idea. I don't know. I haven't had a Fuser update in ages, so we'll see.
My knee-jerk response or guess there is they're probably patching stuff out because some licenses expired.
That was my assumption too, but you can't buy new songs, so presumably anything that you have access to.
Yeah, sure.
Anything, I don't know. Well, I'll see. I'll hit the button after this, and I'll report back.
Yeah. Okay. You did the fun thing of downloading a whole ass game, a big one. I think it was Space Marine 2, right?
Satisfactory.
Or was it? Oh, it was Satisfactory. That's right. Like as we were starting this, you started a big download, and I became robotic, right?
Yeah, you did. And now it's funny. It says it was like, this is going to take a minute. And now it's like, this is going to take a day. So I don't know. I think it's the installation is taking a minute.
Remote podcasting while downloading a giant game is risky business.
Well, I throttled it.
Okay.
So that we're safe.
All right. So we're not latent here.
No, we're not latent. We're not. Yeah. I'm not going to jack up the pod to download Satisfactory 2.
Yes.
But what I am going to do is talk about the biggest new hardware week we've seen in a minute. I mean, I guess we had some CPU announcements a bit ago.
Big week for new hardware announcements.
Yeah, Apple had an event. Mark Cerny took a stage.
Kind of. Not like last time.
Oh, really? I didn't watch that.
We'll talk about it. Well, okay. Which one are we doing first?
I don't know. You want to do PlayStation first? Because I feel like
I think there's more to say there, or there's more interesting stuff to talk about there, because the Apple stuff
was meh.
Yeah, it was fine, but it was kind of what you expected, I guess. Everything is slightly better.
Like, okay, so the TLDR on the Apple event is that the iPhone 16 seems like maybe it's really good this year, and the iPhone 16 Pro seems fine.
Interesting. Oh, okay, that's something I would like to hear more about.
Look, the Watch 10 is real thin, and it's shiny black, which I like. The Watch Ultra 2 is the same as last year's Watch Ultra 2, but with an updated color.
Wait, hang on. You're just burning material now.
Look, I'm just giving everybody what they need to know. No, it's fine. It was a fine. Yeah, well, we'll talk about it. Let's talk about PlayStation. I'm curious. I know nothing about this other than it costs $700, and I think Patrick Klepek described it as they could have charged whatever they wanted to soak the users who will pay for this.
That's probably true. Well, yeah. I mean, there's a limit to everything, but yes, that's probably true. They probably could have jacked it to $800, and the people that are going to buy it at $700 would still pay $8, if I had to guess.
There's a curve where the price people are willing to pay and the number of people willing to pay that price intersect.
Yeah.
And the way they chose the price for this, I'm sure, is looking at where those lines intersect, and it's the most money for Sony.
Yes, for sure. All right. PlayStation 5 Pro, after months of rumors, like nothing stays secret anymore.
We've had PlayStation 5 Pro rumors since you couldn't buy a PlayStation 5 still. Yeah.
I mean, we've basically known this thing was real because like developer documents have been in the hands of media for 6 months, you know, like they're like, hey, we have seen developer documentation for this, unless somebody has fabricated all of that. this is 100% real. But the specificity with which the rumors nailed exactly what this thing is kind of crazy. Like, it's exactly what the rumors said, down to what's in the GPU, like everything. So nothing really surprising here if you kept up with the rumors, except for the price. But yeah, so they did a Mark Cerny presentation, technical presentation is how they described it, but it was a far cry from the PS5 launch presentation. Do you remember that one?
That's the one where they had like the pictures, they had the video of Spider-Man swinging through Manhattan with no loads and showed how like that speed was limited by the hard drive performance in the PS4 and all that stuff.
Yes, so that's the one where he spent a significant amount of time talking about HRTFs and 3D modeling your ears.
Yep.
But the key thing there is that was him kind of live. I mean, it may have been pre-recorded, but it was just sort of a live shot of him at a podium going through a presentation for an hour.
Yeah.
And I kind of expected something similar here, but this is it was a 9-minute video. It was very like marketing polished, much more of a manicured kind of presentation.
Were there visual effects?
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty matter of fact. It was just much more condensed and it didn't go into as much detail. It
wasn't the real nerd shit that we got before.
Yes, which I was hoping for, but we did not get a lot of that. But I mean, there's plenty of detail here to know what this thing is. He started out, like they went through all the innovations of the PS5, fast loading, X, Y, and Z things that they did to make a great console in their minds. But he said, when I talk to developers, the thing they do ask for the most is more graphical performance. Although I imagine that's true of every console since the beginning of time.
That seems right.
But the thing I did not expect is they got into data and they said that 3/4 of players are picking performance modes on PS5. And that's obviously based on telemetry that they're collecting.
This is the first kind of broad preference I've seen, like from current generation where like since we started having the performance or quality mode choice about what people are picking. I would have guessed that people pick quality, and I'm shocked by this.
Same. I also was absolutely shocked by it. And it's like kind of invaluable that they shared this, because this is normally like proprietary information that big companies like this are going to keep to themselves to make decisions based on.
It makes the case for the hardware, right? Like it's a little self-serving, but like it's a real testament to NVIDIA's to spending the last 20 years talking about how frames win games to sell CPUs, GPUs. That like console players now pick the perf option rather than the make it look shiny and I care less about sweat than getting the extra 3 frames a second or 30 frames a second.
Yeah, what is this generation sweat? Sweat was the PS3 360 generation effect du jour.
Yeah, and it was puddles on 4, right? Well, on the Xbox X-Bone.
No, the puddles. I'd say the puddles were more an object of derision. Like what were the I don't know, like particles? No, like I don't think there was
it's ray tracing. It's got to be ray tracing. So it's like shadows and shiny, right?
Yes, I guess it's ray tracing.
Last gen,
it was light blooms on the original Xbox. It was light blooms, if you remember.
Yeah, and like Xbox, I think the Xbox One and the PS4, it was probably like apps. Remember, because you could plug your cable box into your Xbox. That's what the kids crave.
That's grim.
Yeah.
Anyway. Okay, yes. So they did say that the overwhelming majority of players are picking performance modes, which I think that made a lot more sense at the launch of the PS5. But now, like, we are really into the middle period where performance modes are actually starting to show some severe compromises.
Yeah,
like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, for example.
I haven't played it on PS5. No, I was waiting on PC for that.
Okay. Like the performance mode in that game is famously blurry. Like it's extremely, it's one of the blurriest games I have ever seen.
So on some of the games, they're actually like turning off features, right? Like they're turning off ray tracing and stuff like that.
For sure.
On some of them, they're just scaling down the resolution and then using the upscaler.
Yes, like Star Wars Outlaws just came out on PS5. Like the performance mode in that one, like is extremely sub 1080p to hit their target frame rates, and still doesn't hit a steady 60. So we are in the point where developers are just pushing the hardware enough now that the performance modes are going to start taking a real hit. Like I would argue performance modes have outlived their effectiveness on this hardware, because this was not something you expected on consoles until now, right?
Yeah. Like
a perpetual split, a perpetual choice between performance and quality was not something you ever expected through the duration of an entire generation until we A, had the half-step consoles last generation that offered it, B, then had this kind of like split generation situation where games were coming out on both for 3 years after launch. So they could do that. They had extra headroom on games that were designed for previous gen hardware. But now that we're into the exclusive games to these consoles, like it's it's kind of outmoded for there to be performance modes. Like they really, I feel like, should just be designing a single mode.
Yeah, and like what was the Performance Plus or whatever? The classic example for me is that Ratchet and Clank game that came out with the PS5, and how it had we got a smooth 30 on the quality mode, or if you do the quality plus or whatever, I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically 40 hertz mode.
Performance RT, I think, was one of the ones that. Well, Insomniac is a special case though, because they have gone so above and beyond on this specific subject.
Well, yeah, but like that actually, it worked really well. Like that's what I want. I just want 40 hertz everything.
Yes. I'm with you on that for sure. Yeah. Like I've been playing Outlaws at 40 hertz and it's fantastic. Like it looks good enough. I mean, it could look sharper.
Like you have why'd you get that on PS5, dude? You should get that on PC.
I mean, look, there is professional value in keeping up with how consoles work and how they look and what the evolving standards are. Also, I like hanging out in the living room with my girlfriend and flopping on the couch to play a game sometimes.
Okay.
Also, I still really enjoy the form of the video game console. Like I really like the simplicity, B, the whole like I started to use the term walled garden. That sounds a little pejorative. What's the term I'm looking for just this kind of closed ecosystem? You know, like
it's a curated experience.
Yes, it's curated. I like, consoles are an exercise in interface design across a bunch of different domains. Like I just like the idea of the integrated box that is made to play games and all the things that go into that.
I get it.
Anyway, all right.
Okay, so what is this thing, Brad?
I'll just tell you what specs they have given here, which are quite fuzzy. This is off of the PlayStation blog post. Sony's not the type to come out with the like raw.
They didn't give us the flops.
Yeah, raw metrics on exactly what's in their new GPU.
Does it have neural AI processing in their new chip and their new SoC?
It must, but they didn't say what kind, and that's actually one of the questions I have about this thing. Okay, they say upgraded GPU, which means 67% more compute units than the base PS5 GPU. I think compute units is an AMD term, right?
Yeah, it's basically their shader cores.
Right. What does NVIDIA call them these days? Has that just been subsumed into CUDA cores? Or they call them because CUDA is more general purpose computing, right?
Yeah, CUDA is the. I actually don't know what they call them these days. I think I always just call everything shader cores because that's what they are. Yeah, I think that's probably the way to. Didn't they? I think NVIDIA used the term stream processors years and years ago. Stream processors might be what they still call them. I can't remember. It's been so long since we had an NVIDIA GPU launch. I've forgotten all of their internal lingo. Yes. At any rate, they say 67% more compute units on this GPU. The word on the street is that it's 60 compute units versus 36 in the base PS5 GPU. Okay, so that's better fill rate on shader limited stuff. That's good. Yes. And 28% faster memory as well. That would be the unified system and graphics memory, right? Because it's DDR4, I think. I don't remember. I'd have to look that up. Early for 5. It must be DDR. Yeah, it must be DDR4. At any rate, like that's what I mean when I say these specs are fuzzy. They give percentages and then they say overall this enables up to 45% faster rendering. I mean that sounds like that sounds like a hey, we went from an RDNA 2 to RDNA 3 or whatever version of the APU. I know they do their own custom APUs, but I'm sure they're based on the same core archetypes. Well, that's the thing, and that's why it's hard to nail some of the stuff down. Like if you Google around, some of the rumors say that there are some RDNA 4 features in this GPU, but it's hard to say because obviously Sony and AMD are not talking. They say advanced ray tracing. We've added more powerful ray tracing. Allows rays to be cast at double and at times triple the speeds of the current PS5. Like that also sounds like something I'm sure that has trickled down from newer AMD hardware. Because obviously AMD is making a bigger ray tracing push on PC. Oh. The PlayStation 5 also has 16 gigabytes of GDDR6, and the DDR4 just uses SSD controller cache. So it's how they do it's how they did the high speed stuff before the SSDs were fast enough. That's right. I think they've been doing GDDR memory since the PS4, I think, for system memory. I'm glad I checked. That didn't sound right. Yes. And then lastly, this is the big one in my mind, and it's one of the things the rumors were pointing at heavily, is that they've got their own DLSS equivalent now. Upscaling, like, honestly, if you want to look at the technology that is the most important thing right now on PCs, it's upscaling. Absolutely. Like, it's the way of the future. All consoles, all video games are going to be using this. Like the Switch 2, we expect also is going to utilize some form of this. Like, it's just
it's basically free resolution. Like the upsampling techniques have gotten so good that it's essentially free resolution for lower resolution performance.
It's funny because you say that, and I can't remember what I played. I played something the other day, and it had an arm that was ghost arming from the AI upscaling pretty consistently. It might have actually been Outlaws.
Okay, it's not perfect. I mean, we should say it's not perfect. Like Digital Foundry has done plenty of like very intensive breakdowns of here's the difference between native and upscaled, and you can see, and the algorithms are better and better. I don't know if this is still the case, but they would point to like, oh, this has trouble with like fences, like certain types of specific high frequency detail don't get recreated very well, but by and large, it's good. It's good. I started to say good enough, but even that sounds like it's selling it short. It's almost, in most cases, it's basically indistinguishable.
Typically, the errors that it creates are not distinguishable at 60 plus frames a second.
Yeah. Yes.
So, like it's the kind of stuff you see in a screenshot, but not when you're actually watching the video of the game.
Yes.
And if you're talking about like streaming onto Twitch or something like that, where they're then munging up the video the video compression even more, you're never going to notice. So, I mean, this sounds good. Honestly, the fact that they didn't have some AI driven upscaling on the PS5 was the thing. The stock PS5 was the thing that made me wonder about the longevity of that hardware, given where the rest of the industry is going.
I mean, I think both of the consoles, the two consoles, were just kind of unfortunately timed, right? Because they both landed kind of right before both ray tracing and AI upscaling became standard.
I think the ray tracing was starting to take off because like they both were post control, I think.
Well,
right?
It was. I mean, the 2080 or the 20 series.
Yeah.
Turing? It was Turing, right?
That sounds right.
Yeah.
Just 20 series.
Yes. The 20 series came out before these consoles, but obviously these specs are locked way in advance.
Yeah, years in advance.
These consoles trickled down from earlier hardware. So yeah, like you said, these consoles hit at exactly the wrong time to adopt like two technologies that are becoming like de facto for video game development.
Well, and at the time, the first version of DLSS, which was the only thing out at the time this hardware, like the only time this hardware would have been in development, wasn't very good. It was game specific. It had a whole host of problems. When they got to DLSS 2, it became oh God, everybody's going to be doing this kind of feature. So
yes, like it's taken years for this to mature and get to the point that it's at now, where it's essentially essential. It's essentially essential.
Well, especially for the ray tracing stuff, because it lets you render at a much lower resolution and then scale up. Anyway,
like if you look at the PS4 Pro that came out, like they were doing similar stuff there. They just didn't have the benefit of machine learning there. If you remember, they were using like a checkerboard rendering technique to boost upsampling then, which was effective enough.
Well, the FSR1 actually wasn't very good.
Well, this was prior to that. This was a Sony internal. The checkerboard stuff was an internal Sony technology.
Well, but I'm saying, looking at the GPU that they had in the PS5, what they would have had access to would have been FSR1 level upsampling, which wouldn't do what they want.
Yes, so they have been using AMD FSR on the current consoles, but yes, that's not machine learning driven. It just runs as shader programs, I believe, and it's just not anywhere near as effective.
Well, and it eats perf from your shader cores too.
Yes,
so you're it's the difference between DLSS and that is the DLSS runs on the CUDA cores.
Yes,
where you're not pulling perf from the rendering the video game part of the GPU. Right.
So yeah, like and they're calling it PlayStation Spectral Super Resolution, which I have to assume they went for a 4-letter acronym that kind of sounded like, and it even has 2 S's in it.
PSSR sounds like it might be communist built though.
Yeah, or it's a real pisser.
Yeah.
Yes, I do kind of like the Soviet sort of vibe to that. I mean, Intel's got XESS, right? Everybody's using, granted, super sampling. There are a lot of S terms in this field. I just think it's funny. Everybody, I think, is like kind of quietly trying to ape the NVIDIA marketing with their own acronyms.
Do you talk about vector stuff at all, or like are they doing
no? Okay, this was so that is exactly the kind of detail that they did not get into at all on this thing.
Okay.
The rumors have said this stuff is going to be very easy to implement for developers, which is not surprising because like NVIDIA stuff like DLSS is like a day or two of work at this point, right? For the common engines.
The DLSS and FSR plugins often are easier to implement in the engine if you're using Unreal or Unity than they are to like add the new hooks into the UI to turn them on and off.
Right. So it sounds like I would expect a lot of games are going to get support for this. But the broad pitch that he made in that video, and this is of course subject to a million variables, but the broad pitch is, hey, we've had fidelity and quality modes, and you've had to pick between performance. what if we could basically deliver more or less close to fidelity visuals at performance frame rates is what they're saying.
So is that going to apply to all the old games that have fidelity and performance modes, or are they going to still be locked at the old frame rates like they were?
So that's just like the PS4 Pro and the Xbox One X. It's entirely at the developer's discretion, but they'll have to go back and manually add support for that. Well, this is where it gets very fuzzy. Fuzzy because just like with the PS4 Pro, there's going to be a similar like a game boost. I forget what they call it, PS5 boost, or so there's a name for it, where, you know, things are slightly faster on this console. So games that had unlocked frame rates, for example, in the past may just run at higher frame rates because they have more headroom. Like, for example, games that are explicitly capped at 30 with no support for any of this stuff will just continue to run like they always have.
So I had a PS4 Pro. It was the first time I ever bought one of those mid-season replacement consoles. And it was actually a pretty good experience because of that, because it meant that my older games I was actually getting the better perf in without the game having to like be updated or whatever.
Yeah, and that's carried over to the PS5, for example. I just downloaded Dark Souls 3 the other day, and I was going to mess with it after this news because that game had an unlocked frame rate on the PS4.
Oh, wow.
And so apparently now it just runs at a solid 60 on a PS5 because of that.
Okay.
Which is cool. So it's that same thing again. But sorry, I forgot to put the list of games that will be supported at launch in here. Or actually, they haven't even said at launch. They just said some of the games getting explicit support for this are, and I'll list them now. Alan Wake 2, Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is not out. I think AC Shadows is the only unreleased game on this entire list. Alan Wake 2, AC Shadows, Demon's Souls, Dragon's Dogma 2, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, Gran Turismo 7, Hogwarts Legacy, Horizon Forbidden West, Marvel Spider-Man 2, Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, The Crew Motorfest, The First Descendant, The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered.
So it's a lot of first-party stuff in like 3 Ubisoft games.
Yes, that's basically it. And it's a lot of games that are anywhere from 1 to, well, the oldest game on here is 3 years old.
I mean, like when they add stuff like this to some enormous open world game where there's always some more shit to do, I kind of don't mind. But yeah, it feels like it's a bummer that they have to add support manually for the PSSR stuff, because that if they had built that into the APIs ages ago, that would have been convenient. Yeah,
well, they probably didn't know what this was going to be at that time.
It's true. With
enough detail to actually plan for it that way.
Where are they training this stuff? Because like, unlike everybody else, they probably don't have like Microsoft and NVIDIA both have big, AI training data centers set up. I assume they're paying somewhere to train the PSSR upscaling algorithm, which is an interesting question. Anyway.
Yeah. And related to that question, I'm also curious, do they implement their own machine learning hardware on here, or this surely this is something AMD has provided,
is the AMD stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Because I know AMD, I think, has been ramping up pretty rapidly on machine learning after the Xilinx acquisition.
Well, and I think the basic strategy with these APUs has been for the last 3 generations now to take basically they take they start building on an older CPU core and then forward port the later GPU cores into the thing, and then stack the configuration so that it has way more of whatever it is they're thinking is going to be important, whether it's shader cores or ray tracing acceleration or what.
Right. Actually, yeah. Thinking back to the last year of CPU announcements, I don't think I even needed to ask that question because, Intel's got their NPUs and their new CPUs that we've talked about, and AMD obviously doing the same stuff. So I'm sure that hardware is coming straight from AMD. But your question about how they're training this, who's doing the back end work to make all this go is interesting, and I have no idea.
Well, because that has a real impact on how it works. With the limited number of games and without there being an infinite number of games that could implement this without them knowing about it, it makes the training a little bit easier, I guess.
Yeah. They did not. So there, there are not a lot of games on this list that support it. And they also did not provide a ton of very tangible visual evidence of what it does, because this was a 1080p YouTube stream.
Makes sense.
They've now put it out in 4K on YouTube, so you can get some slightly better sense of things. And I guess I lost my Sony Press Center login a long time ago, but I think they put out some very nice high res screenshots and videos that some media sites have looked at. You can definitely see it, in side by sides. Obviously it is absolutely sharper. How well this compares to something like DLSS remains to be seen until this thing is out and people do some severe tests on how well this holds up.
I wonder if because PS4 is a PS5 is a Zen 4. Zen 2 base.
Yeah, it's Zen 2. Yes, it's the CPU is quite dated, and we didn't even get into it, but it's basically the same CPU in this thing. I think, and this is all out of the rumor mill, but I think the CPU can run at a slightly higher clock at the expense of slightly lower GPU performance, but I don't know how many developers are going to use that.
Okay.
But it is basically the same CPU, which it is more or less required. Like, I see a lot of people gnashing their teeth about, well, they're not upgrading the CPU, who cares? But like, they kind of can't without breaking compatibility with existing software. Like, they kind of, like, the logic and everything has to run basically the same.
It makes the other stuff a lot more complicated.
Yeah. Yes.
And they're not like changing it's not like a PCIe 5 SSD or anything like that now, it looks like either.
Same speed of storage. We'll get to the other specs on the console in a minute, but yeah, same speed of RAM. They talked about what some of these games are getting. A lot of them, it was just, hey, higher resolution, higher frame rate, like we've pitched. But then, for example, like Gran Turismo 7 is getting real-time ray trace reflections on cars, which it did not have before.
Okay.
So there are, in some cases already, they were talking about specific features they are turning on for certain games. CNET got to go see this thing in person and talk to Sony and some other Sony people about it. The big quote that stood out to me, and this is not surprising because this is exactly how the PS4 Pro went. Sony told them, I've already seen games with 3 different PS5 Pro modes. So when you think about the pitch of, hey, you've had to choose between performance and fidelity, what if you didn't have to choose anymore? Like, already, of course, developers are using this headroom to just provide even more modes that, and again, we talked about Insomniac. They have put 3 modes in PS5 games already where it's like performance with ray tracing, and then full high resolution. He went on to say, as time goes by, particularly for the games we're launching after the hardware releases, we'll increasingly see a more nuanced approach where the focus is less on resolution and much more about higher image quality through a variety of strategies. So you could see games a year or two from now coming out with dramatically better ray tracing or any number of other specific features being turned on.
So the interesting thing to me is whether the PSSR stuff is going to roll back onto the older hardware too, because FSR isn't hardware dependent. It'll just run on the compute cores, on the shader cores. So I don't know.
I have to imagine no.
I would think not, but also
I just can't imagine the PS5 shipped with the hardware necessary to do this. I don't know that there's any machine learning capability in the PS5 to speak of.
But that's the thing. If it's based on FSSR, then there's no machine learning requirement. It runs on shader cores. So it'll eat, like there's a 2 lines on the graph meeting at the right place to decide whether it's worth implementing this and upscaling or not implementing this. And I don't know. I just wonder, like, the question with this stuff is always, for developers, is always like, how many of these are they going to sell? Is it worth taking the time to implement specific stuff for a SKU that's a fraction of the console audience versus, say, putting DLSS and FSR in your PC port, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know where this number has come from, but the number that's been going around for the PS4 Pro is that it was something like 12 to 14% of the total PS4 install base, which doesn't sound like much, but then when you look at the number of total units, that is quite a few consoles.
I think they also sold a bunch of those because it was pretty tied to the PSVR launch. So it was the way you got non-fuzzy VR stuff too. Like, I bought a PS Pro because of VR.
Right. Some VR games did have enhancements. Just to be clear, though, when you're talking about this trickling back to base PS5, are you talking about PSSR? Because that is explicitly machine learning driven. So
okay, so it won't run on the older.
They've very explicitly said this is based on machine learning hardware.
Well, so my question was, is if it's FSR based, then
it's not. It is. Okay. Yeah. There's no indication at all that that's the case.
Okay.
Basically, it sounds like the PS4 Pro situation, except I think the upscaling is going to be much more effective than it was there. So I do take them at their word that they're going to be able to deliver solid frame rates with much higher resolution.
Well, I can't wait to pop in my Ratchet & Clank disc and fire this up and see what it looks like.
Well, I have bad news for you on that front.
You said Ratchet & Clank's on the list. I can totally play it, right? It's going to have all the ups, the new stuff that's going to be built in there. I love that game.
Wait, did you buy that on disc?
Look, man, I was giving you a segue.
Okay. Do you actually, I mean, in all seriousness, though, I don't own a single PS5 disc. Do you?
No, I don't have any discs.
Okay.
But
I've only got 15, maybe 20 PS4 disc games, something like that.
I had more PS4 disc games because I had 2 PS4s for reasons. But yeah, like okay, so I'm not in the rarefied air that you are, where I get a bunch of codes for review games.
Sure.
But I also, with the exception of the Switch, which has its own unique set of problems, and I think we should do an episode about how the family sharing stuff works at some point in the future across the different platforms, because Steam, it's relevant now, again, in a way that's interesting.
Steam rolled out some kind of crazy changes to that setup.
Yeah, I buy a lot of cartridges for the Switch and no other physical media, basically.
Interesting.
Theoretically, let's say I had a Ratchet and Clank disc and I wanted to try it in my new PS5 Pro.
It's almost like you know the answer to this question.
Look, man, sometimes you ask the question because you know the answer, Brad.
So yeah, we'll talk about the other specs on the console here. They have upped the storage, the internal storage, to 2 terabytes.
Okay, that sounds nice.
Which is over 1 terabyte in the Slim, and the original launch model only had like around 650 gigabytes.
One of the things I didn't realize as a PS5 owner is that when you upgrade your SSD in the PS5, when you open it up, crack open the shell and put a new SSD in there, it's additive and not replacing. So like when I put a 2 terabyte SSD in my PS5, I then had 2 terabytes plus whatever the 600 gigs was at launch.
Oh, yeah. Why would you expect it to?
Well, I assumed it was just an SSD in there, and I popped it off. I would open it up and take one SSD out and put a new one in.
You thought the shipping SSD was removable? No, no,
that's soldered on the board.
That is like everything is soldered to the board these days.
Well, I mean that makes sense in retrospect, but like I just assumed it was going to work like a PC or a laptop or something.
Yeah.
So
I get what you mean. The bummer for me on both consoles, the Series X works the same way here. Is that it's not transparently additive. And maybe it makes sense because the drive you put in is maybe going to have like subtly different speed characteristics than the included one, but they don't all merge into one big storage pool on the console. Like you still have to designate, do I want to install this to my added drive or to the shipping internal drive? Like,
oh man, I have literally never thought about that at all. I just hit the install button and it does it, and it's worked fine so far. Well,
but that's the thing though. We will run into cases where you don't have enough on your chosen your chosen drive, and it will
weird. Okay.
It'll bug you to free up space rather than just falling back to the other one.
Oh, it hasn't. I haven't had that happen yet, but okay, I got it.
Some way to just pool the storage together would be very nice.
Especially now that we have like PCIe 5 SSDs, right. And it's not like getting a fast enough SSD is a problem like it used to be.
Yeah. Yes. Anyway, so increased storage in there, but as you alluded to, no Blu-ray drive. They are shipping a single SKU. Also, I'm really burying the lead on the price. We're just kind of saving that for the end here. Just like Sony did.
Oh, by the way, guys.
At the very tail end of that video. I had expected there would not be a Blu-ray drive SKU for this thing because I figured the margins were going to be such that they would try to keep costs down as much as they could.
Makes
sense. Now that they have this modular drive design, because it's just easier to show a cheaper price on the box. I did not expect them to go as high as they did on the price, but anyway, yes. Blu-ray drive not included here. That's an additional $80, which is the same as the PS5 Slim. The way the Slim works is it's $450 for the digital Slim.
Okay.
Which actually went up. If you remember, the digital only original PS5 was
$400,
$399.
Yeah.
So the price went up $50 for the digital Slim, but you can get the disk drive Slim for $500. So you're paying $50 for the disk drive if you buy it bundled, or $80 if you buy the disk drive separately later.
Got it.
So it's going to be $80 if you want to add a Blu-ray drive to the PS5 Pro, and they're not even including the vertical stand. Although I don't think they include it with the Slim either. If I'm not mistaken.
Is your PlayStation vertical or horizontal?
Oh, horizontal, always.
Oh wow, weird. Mine's vertical.
Dude, that thing is like a mile long. Where am I going to stand that thing up?
Well, it's on the floor by my desk.
That works.
Yeah.
I mean, it's basically the size of a mini ITX computer at this point.
Kind of is.
So yeah, nothing in the box. Like if you want Blu-ray drive or stand, that's going to be $110 combined.
Get wrecked.
On top of the $700 price. Also, it's got Wi-Fi 7, just to follow up on last week's episode.
Oh, that's nice. It's like they were listening.
Yeah, the first of the 2 consoles that we have evaluated here for upcoming Wi-Fi 7 support has returned a positive.
You mean 802.11be, I think.
Yes, that's the one. So I think
that sounds good.
Everything. Yeah, it's about the same size as the launch PS5, it sounds like. I think they said it's exactly the same length as the launch PS5, but maybe a tad bit thinner.
It looks like the fin to body ratio is closer to 1-to-1 now.
Yeah, that got smaller on the Slim also.
Yeah, the PS5, the fins stick up above the top of the console quite a bit.
Yes, the popped collar design of the PS5 has gotten a little bit more dignified over time.
I like the PS5 design, dude.
I hate it, man. I literally wrote in the notes here, this thing has the same abhorrent industrial design as the other PS5 products.
I mean, look, my take on this is that I kind of don't care what it looks like as long as I never hear it when it turns on. And I haven't heard a fan on this thing yet. And even the PS4 and Xbox One era, I still heard the fans on occasionally.
You got lucky then, because there is a legitimate fan roulette that goes on with the PS5s, unfortunately.
Oh, wow. Really? I didn't know that.
Certain brands of fans that they ship are just awful to listen to. And it's not for like normal mechanic. I've heard this. I've been in the presence of PS5s that have these types of fans. It's not for normal mechanical reasons. There's like some kind of resonance that happens with these fans that sounds like, if you Google UFO effect, that's what the kind of community has come to call it.
Oh boy.
Because it sounds like this, it almost sounds like this little bit of like this 50s sci-fi like ray gun or UFO.
It's like off.
Yes, this like warbling.
Oh, that sucks.
It's pretty subtle, but it's like very noticeable. It's not great. So
it's the kind of thing that once you hear, you can't ever unhear.
Yeah, so there's all kinds of people out there replacing their PS5 fans to try to get off whatever brand that is that makes that awful sound.
I can see that.
Anyway. Okay, I think we've gone through everything here except for the price, which again is $700. Which
wait, is it $700 or is it $799?
No, it's $700.
Oh, okay.
It's 799 euros.
Oh, okay. I think I must have seen euro pricing because
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So $700 suddenly seems a lot better to me because I was thinking it was $800 until about 20 seconds ago.
But I'm trying to think back through the long annals of console pricing. The 3DO was $700 in 1993. But I'm not sure if there's been another console this expensive ever.
What was the famous PS4 quote was people will start saving money now to buy a PlayStation PS3 for $600?
It was the PS3 at $599 in 2006. I mean, it came out it did come out in 06. The famous Ken Kutaragi quote was more along the lines of like, we think people will want to work more hours or pick up a second job to afford it. That's in retrospect, which always goes over great.
Okay, so 2006, $600.
Oh,
I'm doing the inflation calculator.
You're just doing the thing.
It would cost $936 today.
The PS. So you're saying the PS3 today would be $900?
$936 today.
Okay, yeah. I mean that's still probably the actual most egregious example of this based on inflation, but you may have noticed there is a tremendous amount of sticker shock going on out there over this.
I think everything is more expensive. I also like the problem with the $700 price range on this is that you're in striking distance of building a pretty nice 1080p PC. Yeah. With DLSS upscaling to 4K, right?
Yes.
Like you can put together something pretty good.
Yeah, this absolutely like we've run this exercise like for the last 8 years or something, probably since the PS4 Pro and 1X came out. Of saying like, hey, if you want better frame rates, now that they're trying to give you better frame rates on consoles for more money, just build a PC. I think this is probably the first time where the financials of that split actually make sense.
I think that's right.
$700 is a tremendous amount of money, and you're not going to build a PC that performs like this for $700, but you can get pretty close, I think.
Yeah, I think you can be in striking distance. So okay.
That raises the question of who is this for? It's a very specific slice of the market that wants better performance but doesn't want to deal with PC for whatever reason.
I mean, I know people who are in that. Like, I know I play Helldivers on the regular with people who are in that category.
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
So obviously, a lot of money. I don't know what this portends for the future of console pricing, but I also don't know where like supply chain things are at in the wake of the pandemic and what kind of like everything is more expensive now, and I don't know how much of that is like manufacturing and supply realities, how much of that is price gouging. Sony very famously, like very publicly, needs to get revenue up. Like their margins have been bad the last year or two in the financial world. So like they are trying to make as much money as they can. So like selling this thing at a loss or even a break even is probably not an option for them. So what is the cost on this thing? I would love to know. How much have they just marked this up over what it costs them to make?
Yeah, it's well, I mean, here's the thing. They're not getting rid of the base model either. Right. Yeah. So like this is the luxury product and it's going to be priced at a luxury price point. And that's just, that's how it is.
Yes, I predicted and hoped this would come in at $599, which it did not, clearly. Which is a shame.
I don't think that's reasonable given the price of the Xbox, because the 2 terabyte Series X is $600.
Yeah, so I have gone and found that. Granted, that is a special edition. That's that like kind of Cosmos or whatever Xbox Series X. It's got a starburst pattern on it. But special editions usually don't cost more. They're usually the same price. They're just limited.
Yeah, usually they're just limited, right?
Yes. But to reiterate, that's an Xbox Series X with 2 terabytes in it, but that's just a base model. You know, it's the same console that launched. That is $599 just with double the storage in it. So I wonder either everybody is price gouging or these things are just getting expensive enough to make that this is a new reality. I'm really not sure.
Well, I think it's price gouging. I think inflation has been a real motherfucker for the last couple of years. Like on one hand, we got out of a global pandemic that stopped all production of everything for a period of months and or years, depending on the categories. And we did it without enormous depression, at least so far, or even really much of a recession. And if all we got out of it is some inflation, then I think that's probably pretty good, all things considered. But also, shit is expensive.
Yeah. Yes. And Sony had said earlier this year, I went back and pulled this quote in investor reports. They had said earlier this year that it's going to be difficult to cut the PS5's price because typically by this point in the generation, the price would have probably started to go down at least $50 or $100.
Well, yeah, but because so in the old days, what you would do is you do a die shrink like you do like in the Xbox 360 era, they combined the CPU and the GPU onto a single die and like increasingly got more of it as a system of a chip on that chip on that thing.
Yeah.
And since they're starting there, now the process of the die shrinks is also much more complicated because they're bringing the entire SoC down and like it may not even be cost effective to do that considering how the console sales like cycle. Like in the old days, there were people who would pick up a new generation on that mid-season price drop.
Right.
And I don't know that happens anymore.
Well, obviously the PS5 Slim exists, so it has gotten smaller. But yeah, like for people who don't care about the internals of consoles, you know, if you look back at like you were just saying, every one of the mid-seasons shrinks on a console. Every time you go from PS3 fat to PS3 medium, and then that tiny little sliding top loader, there's a concomitant reduction in the complexity of the components inside as well. Like if you just look at the boards inside those things, there's way less stuff on there because they have shrunk and consolidated everything. And it just sounds like that is not happening this time. And I don't know, that probably owes to a lot of factors. I do know they went from 7 nanometer to 6 when they went to the Slim.
Yeah.
But Sony Interactive Entertainment head Hiroki Totoki said in this investor thing that like he quite specifically pointed to the difficulty of further shrinking the PS5 SoC die as the reason they are not able to cut the price anymore. So we talked about this recently. It just makes me think again about all the competition for TSMC's capacity these days. NVIDIA and Apple are basically just hogging all of the good fabrication now.
Well, and also
with phones and AI chips. And so it's just gotten harder and more expensive for other companies to get good stuff made.
And also with the high end stuff being all desegregated now, they're able to really target the stuff that's going to benefit from the 4 nanometer process on and not waste a bunch of their internal die space on things that won't benefit from that. So you're seeing this is an old monolithic design, and it means that if they want to do a 4 nanometer version of this, they got to do the entire thing at 4 nanometers, which is going to have huge costs because, like you said, they're competing with NVIDIA and Intel and AMD. And anyway, it's a tough situation.
And to be clear, I'm not trying to argue the price is like justified or palatable. It obviously is not. Like that's a tremendous amount of money. But I do think it's worth trying to figure out what is going on behind the scenes and how much of this is them. I don't want to say profiteering, but trying to increase their profit margins. And what are just the hard limits on what the manufacturing cost is and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think here's the thing on the mid-season upgrade, right? Is you're never going to see them do that as a loss leader. That is a premium product.
Yeah, you're almost definitely right about that.
I think because we're seeing, I think there's two things that have happened this time that are weird. One is that the pandemic supply constraints caused a lot of people to have a hard time getting hardware for the first half of this cycle, right? The first half of the cycle to date. So like if you're looking at PlayStation 5 availability, it kind of like Black Friday last year was the first time I remember seeing, oh, you can go into a store and get a PS5. And it was also the first time it really went on sale. So you're seeing, I think there's an opportunity here for them that didn't exist on like the PS4 Pro or the Xbox Series, the Xbox One X, because like they had typically you release this once you've filled supply, once you've filled demand for the hardware generation. And now there's probably still a bunch of people out there who are sitting looking like, man, I play games on my PC and I don't need a PS5 because they just really like God of War comes out later this month. And that's the only thing I really care about at this point. Now you're looking at this Pro as, hey, I haven't bought a PS5 yet. Is it worth paying an extra $200 to get the good one? Or should I just get the cheapo and consider it good enough? And like the value proposition for this, for me for this is how much longer is this generation going to last? I assume that weird 3-year overlap is going to be the norm going forward, because it turns out people who spend $100 million making games like to sell them to as many people as possible. Mm-hmm. So maybe the mid-season upgrade isn't a bad call if you haven't already bought into PS5s yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you can stomach the price, of course. There's also the idea of the upgrade cost, and people saying I already have a good PS5. I'm not paying $700 for that, but I suspect Sony is looking for a lot of trade-ins on this thing because they themselves have launched a direct trade-in program now.
Yeah,
you can actually trade your PS5 in. I mean, I guess Apple has been in that business for years. Maybe that's just everybody following in their footsteps, but you can trade your PS5 in directly to Sony now for some amount of money off of this thing. And there's, the GameStops of the world as well. Like I assume that's probably going to be a route a lot of people will go who want to trade up.
I just I don't know that this is worth an upgrade.
Yeah, it is, it is a very, like I said, a very specific niche of people who want more performance out of the console they already have, but don't want to build a PC.
Competitive COD players, man.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. COD runs just fine.
Yeah, that's the thing. Anyway, so that's PS5. You want to talk about some Apple stuff real quick?
Yeah.
Jam it out here.
Sure.
Apple's September Meh event. There's two underlying threads. One is that Apple Intelligence is the thing that they're counting on to sell all of this stuff. Because when you look at the hardware pages on their website, it's like hey, it's bigger and the screen looks better. And then there's like 3 pages of stuff about Apple Intelligence and how amazing it's going to be. And then the second thing underlining it is a lot of the features that are the most exciting things about these new pieces of hardware aren't going to be available at launch.
Oh,
so because Apple Intelligence doesn't ship until the fall, later this fall.
Wait, is it not just in iOS 18 out of the gates? Did I know that?
Nope, nothing there. When you download the betas, there's nothing there. All the Apple Intelligence features say coming soon. It's Brad. When you go to the buy page for the iPhone, it says iPhone 16, 6.1 inch display, and then underneath it is the Apple Intelligence logo and Apple Intelligence with a footnote that when you click the footnote, number 8, it says, I'm going to read it exactly so I don't mess it up. Apple Intelligence will be available in beta on all iPhone 16 models, iPhone 15 Pro and 15 Pro Max with Siri and device language set to US English as an iOS 18 update this fall. Some features and additional languages will be coming over the course of the next year. So if you have a 15 Pro or 15 Pro Max, you're fine. If you have a 16, you get Apple Intelligence. Only if you're in the United States or if your language is set to US English. I guess you don't have to be in the United States, but your language has to be American English. Anyway, so there's a handful of new things coming on phones. I think the big takeaway I had is that the iPhone 16 non-Pro seems like the real winner.
Okay.
They've upgraded. So that's the 2-camera model. They upgraded the ultra wide camera that they put on a couple years ago. That was always, I would describe the ultra wide previously as fine. Like you're not going to use it for like an up close shot. You're not going to do a digital zoom on it or something like that. The pictures that they're showing out of that and the reports that I saw from people who had hands on seem to say that the built-in, it has a 2x telephoto mode that's on that camera, on that lens as well, that takes some subset of the 48 megapixels and does a better than digital zoom is the way people were describing it. It seems fine. It has a macro mode now, so you used to be able to kind of cheat that but it seems to do up close focusing. So you get that ultra wide up real close on something and take a cool frog picture if you can get the frog to be still. It
Love a cool frog picture.
We have frogs in our backyard.
Cool.
There's a crack in my patio, and as I walked by it the other day, a frog leapt out and landed on me.
Wow.
And I was like,
wait, on you?
On my foot. It landed on my foot. I think it made a mistake. It was not happy about its choices.
Okay.
But when I walk by, they're just sticking there. There's two frogs and they're poking their heads out. I'm like, oh, hey, frogs, how's it going?
You got to take some cool frog photos.
They don't stay still is the problem. Anyway, you get spatial compatibility if you're one of the 8 people who bought an Apple Vision Pro. And you get this new audio mix thing that lets you use some machine learning stuff to give you more control over the audio in the shot. So you can say, okay, I only want to have the main subjects. I want to only have the stuff that's in frame. I want to get the complete audio spectrum. There's more. We'll talk more of that on the pros, because that is one of the pro features. It's an A18 processor. They built an internal frame that's made out of aluminum and is designed to help dissipate heat better, which is one of the problems with the older like my 15 Pro gets hot.
Yeah, especially as they've been shipping your Resident Evil 4s and some kind of modern games on there. Apparently they get extremely warm running those.
Yeah, so they can get up to like higher than body temperature regularly.
Yeah.
And it's kind of surprising the places it's not like spread out over the entire frame. It's only in specific places. So I assume that they're doing like probably not heat pipes, but just a more intentional contact points for the metal to the glass internally. The 16 now has the satellite text and roadside assistance and crash detection, which I think are new in the 16. It has the action button, which is the thing they put on the Pro last year to replace the old toggle switch for mute and for silent and not silent, which is one of those things I was kind of skeptical about, but having a button that automatically takes you to like portrait mode, it turns out really nice. Having a dedicated camera button, pretty good.
Yeah, customizable action button is great. I kind of wish they had not removed the hard mute toggle, just because there was tactile feedback there about whether it was muted or not. But,
well, so you can keep you can keep it on mute if you want. You can keep that a mute button if you want. I switched it almost immediately for what it's worth. Really good colors on the 16. It's like pink and blue, and they're pink, blue, green, kind of white and black. It seems nice.
Okay. There won't be any news on this until before we get to the Pro. I think we're about to move on. I guess there won't be any news on this until there are teardowns after it comes out. There were rumors. I actually saw this from Kyle Wiens on Twitter, the iFixit guy. There were rumors that they're using a new method of securing the battery. I mean, obviously this is something he would care about.
Oh, instead of gluing it in?
Yes, instead of whatever apparently very crappy like heat sensitive adhesive that they're using.
Yeah.
I believe he made it sound like it was some kind of voltage based securing mechanism.
Weird.
Like, I don't know if that would be something magnetic or something that you would apply current to or something along those lines.
I can't imagine they'd waste battery on something that holds the battery in place.
Well, I don't know. We'll see when it comes out. There are those new types of magnets that are in more use now, where you apply current to them once and they become secured.
Yeah, it could be that.
And then they don't let go until you kind of invert the current or whatever it is.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll watch the teardown for that. That's cool.
Yeah, obviously Apple's not going to talk about that in their presentation, but that's something I'm curious just from a tech perspective. That sounds neat.
I mean, they've been doing better about repairability stuff, and that's one of the adhesive batteries is one of the last places that they had big problems.
Sure.
So.
I guess with right to repair stuff picking up more steam, I guess it is in their interest to make things more easily accessible both to them and customers.
Yeah. Okay. Other stuff. They have the new camera button in the 16, which I was kind of surprised by. I expected that to be a 16 Pro only thing. It's another taptic. They call it a taptic button, which means it's a capacitive place with some haptic stuff underneath it that works like the touchpad does on the MacBook, where it doesn't actually move, but it feels like it's moving to your finger. Basically you can swipe it, you can press it. In the future, you'll be able to do a half press to lock focus, just like you would on an old point and shoot camera, and then reframe your shot however you want.
Okay.
That's coming soon. Again, another coming soon feature. But yeah, so by default, if you swipe it, it does zoom. And then if you click it, it launches the camera. The camera is supposed to launch very quickly. I actually timed the camera from the action button on my 15 Pro Max. And it seemed faster in the video. I don't know if an extra half second matters, but whatever. It seems good.
Trying to get a shot rapidly, the faster the camera comes up, the better.
Yeah, my kid's old enough now that if I tell her to stop, then she stops. I can take the picture of her when she's she'll be still for me.
Yeah. But when we were on the highway the other week and we were driving past a car that had a license plate that said Waluigi on it.
You need the button for that, clearly.
With a J. I was trying to get my camera out as fast as I could.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Okay, that thing sounds pretty good. Sorry, my phone's yelling at me. It has styles for which it seems like a filter replacement, and this is a thing that lets you do almost. It looks almost like color grading, like presets for color grading that are revertible. So it takes this picture. You can set it to automatically apply your style. It can adjust for your skin tone. And you can revert those changes. They're not baked into the file, so that's a good change. That's on both the 16 and 16 Pro. It's not coming to older phones, which is interesting. So I assume it's using the faster when they showed the die shot for the A18 processor, it looks like about 20% of the die is dedicated to the AI acceleration stuff, which is a more than in previous years, assuming their stuff is to scale. Okay, so 16 Pro. Oh, so that starts at $800 for the normal, $900 for the Max.
Woof. Speaking of everything being expensive now.
Well, I mean, that's what they've been costing for a while. It's more expensive than the $600 that the iPhone launched at.
Yes, but I'm on an iPhone SE that was like 400 and something that I've had for 3 years.
And it's still 128 gigabyte base model, $100 more for up to 512 gigs of storage on these. The 16 is a 6.1 inch display, and the 16 Plus is a 6.7 inch display. That's pretty much it. Honestly, it's the first time in a long time that the 16, the non-Pro model didn't seem like a second class citizen. Okay, so iPhone 16. Pretty good, I'm going to say. The iPhone 16 Pro feels a little thin.
Yeah.
Well, not actually thinner. It's at the same size as the last year's, but
conceptually, philosophically thin.
Yeah, philosophically thinner. The Pro starts at $1,000, just like before. The Pro Max, which is bigger, starts at $1,200. Sorry, $1,199. I've got to use the proper numerology, and it's a 6.3 and 6.9 inch display. I think the displays are technically a little bit larger because the bezels are a little bit thinner this time.
Is that new? Is it new for the Pro to actually have a different form factor?
The Pro has had the same form factor. No, the Pro's been slightly different for a while.
Okay.
The Pro didn't have the non-Pro didn't have the embedded hole in the screen for the camera. It was the notch last year.
That's right.
Actually,
I'm sorry, real quick. Is that where we're at on the regular iPhone, or is the regular iPhone still notched, or does it have the island?
That is a good question. I didn't actually look. I don't think I didn't look at that. If I'm remembering,
very easy to check.
I think it's notched.
Is it still? Oh, interesting. I figured that would just trickle down to all the phones.
No. I'm sorry. It's island. It's islanded.
Really? Yes. Yes, you're right. The regular 16 is an island.
It's funny. The thumbnail on the website looks like the notch when you click on the thing, but it's the island. So yeah.
Because last year, I think it was just the Pro that had the island last year, right?
Yeah, the island was new last year. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that's right.
Yeah, so the island was just Pro last year. So now everything has the island.
Wait, no, I'm sorry, got to correct.
It was the year before. Should we just start over?
Let's just keep rolling. The 15 had the island. I'm going to say the iPhone 14 did not.
Okay, this is where we're at. The island is a feature that I never like. Sometimes food pickup uses I ordered Domino's pizza the other day because somebody in the house wanted cheesy bread, and I got the island thing on that, but only briefly, and then it went away. The only other place I like when I was on an plane flight and I used the e-ticket to check in, I had the island on that, and it gave me the notification for when the flight was going to be over, which was cool. Kind of nice.
Yeah, that's. Are you saying you just don't pay attention to it otherwise, or app developers literally aren't not even using it?
I hardly ever see it used by anything other than Apple Music uses it, Spotify uses it, my podcast player uses it.
Because persistent status on a screen like that has a lot of value. Obviously,
it's Apple. When you watch something on the Apple TV, it uses it. That's nice, but other than that, not really a whole lot of use.
Sorry, not to derail further here. Are we still hoping that someday they'll be able to just transparently hide the camera behind the screen?
I don't really care. It doesn't bother me.
Well, I mean more just like, do we think that's possible? Do we think that's something they're working on?
I don't.
That was the rumor for a long time.
I mean, I think that's the goal, right? Is to have it be not an intrusive thing. I'm going to go and tell you, I haven't thought about the island since we talked about it on the podcast last time about a year ago. Like it just becomes invisible.
Yeah. But I mean, again, though, like aesthetic preferences aside, I'm just curious if that's something they're actually still pursuing, because that seems like a pretty significant challenge.
I mean, maybe I think the reason they couldn't do it on LCDs is because the grid would show up on your pictures, which you don't want. So I don't know. I would rather have the better camera than have the visible hole than the alternative.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it's a A18 Pro processor. It's got the same aluminum internals for heat dissipation that the 16 has. It's the 6-core CPU, 6-core GPU, and 16-core neural engine. And the big thing on the camera, it has the same camera button as the iPhone 16 with the taptic thing. It has same 48 megapixel ultra wide camera now. It still has the 2x camera and the telephoto, the 5x zoom. The non-pro version gets the 5x tetra prism zoom, which is nice. So it used to be you had a 4x zoom, I think, on the pro non-max, and a 5x zoom on the max. So that's a good thing. The cameras support 4K 120 hertz Dolby Vision.
That seems insane.
People are oddly using them in weird ways for like stuff that I wouldn't expect.
Okay, sure. Yes. I was thinking like videos of your kids' dance recital, probably not necessary, but if people are doing like weird time-lapsey or weird exposure stuff, I could see that.
Well, I know a couple of people who've done like indie films where their B unit cameras are like fancy iPhones.
Right.
The problem is you have to have the Dolby Vision and the raw, like the high quality video coming out of these cameras takes up so much space. You have to use the 512 gigabyte version. Yes,
I believe that.
And also like transferring the footage becomes a real problem at that point. It has studio quality mics is what they're calling them, 4 studio quality mics. Now, I know what I think of as a studio quality mic,
mm-hmm.
and I feel like
does not fit in an iPhone.
Yeah, it's a little bit bigger than that. I think what they mean is they've reduced the noise floor that the mics pick up, and they're doing a lot of processing on it now, which we talked about a little bit with the audio mix stuff in the camera now. But I think better input into that is giving better output in the pros is the idea. I'm a little skeptical of that.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Okay. Phones.
It seems fine.
Yeah. They made new phones.
The colors are super boring. Like the iPhone 16 gets really good colors, bright, like fun colors. And this is like titanium, black, white, and beigeur titanium.
Hey, that's because it's a professional phone.
I
gotta keep it professional.
Cool. The one thing I didn't remember to check is if it has Wi-Fi 7. I assume that they do.
Oh yeah, we've got to do our due diligence on Wi-Fi 7 support.
When we broke off here for a minute and then I forgot to check it, so it's on me.
Yes.
16 and 16 Pro are both Wi-Fi 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
Confirmed.
Yeah. Good job, us. So all the other stuff for the Pro is AI tied features, and that stuff's not available at launch. So
right.
I have to say I've been running the iOS 18 beta for a minute. And I do like the dark and light mode for the icons on the home screen. But more than anything, I like being able to just turn off the labels for the icons and have big giant icons.
Yeah, that's nice and clean.
Feels good. The automatic icon changing thing is not as useful, is not as cool as it is made to look in the trailer.
Yeah,
it only works on some stuff.
That would just mess with your familiarity of what's what.
It does indeed. Okay, so other stuff that they did, a new Apple Watch, which was, I think, a surprise, right?
Yeah. I think it was a surprise that it was at this event. Like people were expecting it this fall, but usually at a separate event a little later, like in October.
Usually it's in October, I think. And so it's the Apple Watch 10.
Yeah. This is the thing I have been waiting for and was kind of all set to get one until something we'll get to.
Well, so It's the new S10 SIP, which is their watch specific processor. It's
what was that, system in package? Is that what they?
Yeah, I think so. I don't actually.
Means?
I don't know what SIP stands for in this context.
I think that's what they call that, which seems, system in package is what they call that. Seems maybe a little unnecessary when SoC already exists, but.
Well, I think the idea is it's more than one chip. It's a disaggregated thing.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so it's thinner with a bigger screen, 42 millimeter and 46 millimeter sizes. The 46 millimeter replaces the old 44 millimeter size.
I think it was 45. Yeah,
it was 45 for a while. Yeah,
starting with the Apple, the Series 8, they went to 45 millimeter, not to quibble over 1 millimeter.
But the gist is they're still compatible with the same size band. So if you have the old small band, old big band, you can move your bands forward with the new one.
Yeah, which is interesting because one of the rumors was they were going to a magnetic band clasp this time, and they apparently did not.
Well, so there's a magnetic band clasp on the new titanium Milanese loop, I believe.
Okay. Oh, sorry. You know what? Clasp is not the right word. Like the connection to the watch face itself was rumored to be going magnetic this time.
Yeah, I like it. I like that it's physical. Yeah, I mean, there's a magnetic component to the existing one too, but
I think it's probably best for it to have that physical block there.
If I'm buying $1,000 watch, I want it to be physically attached, not how do magnets work?
Yeah.
Old bands are compatible. The screen, it goes up to 2000 nits, which has been the case for the last 2-3 generations, I think. They compare it on the store page to the 3 in size, so they can say the screen is 75% bigger because the 3 still had the big edge.
When the headlines first came out for this thing, because the watch was the thing I was waiting for here, because I used the watch so much, I was like, you know what, the watch might be the thing I treat myself to trading in for every couple of years.
Yeah.
And the headlines were all like 30% bigger screen. I was like, holy shit. Because, again, the rumors have been like way thinner, way bigger screen, like way more real estate for screen, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Like, wow, they did it. And then, yes, turns out it's 1 millimeter bigger than the one I have.
Yeah. Well, it does look substantially thinner, but I don't trust their photos on this stuff because the way the edges work on the watch specifically, it looks thinner than it is in real life often.
Yeah.
It has new finishes on the aluminum one. There's a glossy black one that they polished the aluminum and then put a black shiny coating on it, which I think actually looks pretty cool. I'm curious to see how it ages because often the anodized ones would scratch and look kind of crappy after a little bit of time.
Yeah. Do you know, are they still doing matte black as well, or does this replace
This replaces the matte black, I believe. So it's matte aluminum.
Yeah. I wonder if that was not selling much, the matte black.
I think people have skipped the matte black because it scratched and showed the silver underneath is my bet.
Okay.
The titanium one, which replaces the stainless steel models, which were the old shiny ones, are $700, and it has 3 titanium finishes too that are like oddly not shiny or not as shiny as I would expect. I'm like, it's interesting because the price on that titanium normal Apple Watch versus the Apple Watch Ultra, they're in the same price range. Basically, it's like $100 off to get the non-Ultra version, but the Ultra one comes with a lot of other stuff that seems like it's probably worth paying the extra $100 if you're in that price range.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's the thinner, lighter watch is compelling, I guess. So
yeah, but not thinner and lighter enough, I think. Or well, we'll get to it. They dropped a feature that. Let's finish reading the features.
Yeah. I apologize. The titanium is shiny. It looks not shiny in some of the pictures, but it is a shiny titanium finish.
Okay.
Let's see. It has water temperature sensor. The Apple Watch has a depth sensor, which I think is new this year. It's not
which one?
The normal one.
Right. That trickled down from the Ultra.
I think that was an Ultra feature. They might have had one last year, but they take down their old pages. And anyway, it's not like the certified for scuba diving depth sensor. It's more for workouts. It's water resistant and all the same stuff that it usually is. They added sleep apnea sensing for everything Series 9 and newer and Ultra 2 and newer. That's pending FDA approval later this fall, they're hoping.
That's cool. I just can't bring myself to sleep on my watch, but that's cool.
Oh, I sleep with mine on. I like it telling me whether I've slept well or not. Because then I have Then I have something that tells me whether I feel bad because I'm just like the meat body is falling apart or because I didn't sleep well the night before.
Sure. Yeah.
They don't have the blood oxygen sensor back yet.
Yeah. This was the thing. And it's not like I use the blood ox all the time. I've used it a few times. But when you consider how little the improvement they've made on the thickness and screen size, I mean, like there is an improvement over the recent models, but just barely. And then you look at like, okay, I'd also be dropping a feature like that just feels bad. I think I'm going to hold off, actually.
Well, for me, the blood ox I cared a lot less about in the pre-COVID days.
Yeah, sure.
When I was sick and my wife was like, I want to make sure you're still alive, but I also don't want to be anywhere near you. I just shared my blood ox information and kept the watch on, and she was able to tell if like it was regularly checking. And it's kind of useful feature.
Like a lot of this stuff, like it's something that you don't care about until you need it. And then it's nice to have it. And you would no longer have it here. So it just feels bad to give up a relatively major health feature.
I think that's it. And for people who don't know, there was basically they got a patent infringement case from a company who then accused them of poaching all their high level staff and, all this bad stuff.
Yeah. Presumably there's some meat to that because that's been going on for a good long while.
It's been a couple of years now. And they seems like nobody's blinking yet. So maybe the blood ox sensor will come back at some point in the future.
Yep.
But I would rather have blood ox than a depth sensor because like if I'm in a pool, I know how deep it is.
Yep.
The sleep apnea thing, like I said, coming later. That's pretty much it. It's the pricing is about the same as it always was.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to say it starts at $3. I can't find it in my notes. It starts at what is going on here? Google Docs starts at $400 for the aluminum one and $700 for the titanium one. The price goes up or down based on the band you choose, and not anything else at this point. I'm kind of like, I don't know. I was close because I'm on a 7 and it seems like this is the last viable year for a trade-in on the 7, but maybe the 7 will just become my sleep tracker.
Sure.
When we move on. Anyway, let's see. Last thing, Apple Watch Ultra. Oh, two more things. There's Apple Watch Ultra 2 and then there's AirPods. Apple Watch Ultra 2 gets an update with new colors and it gets the sleep apnea tracking. That's pretty much it. It's still the S9 SIP. Nothing else new.
Still got the flat face.
Still has the flat face. I like the flat.
I do too. I keep hoping the flat face will come to the regular because I don't want to spend ultra money.
I think it's probably not going to happen because they just redid the case. So that means we're probably in the new one for the foreseeable future. I wonder if next year there'll be an updated Ultra with a new body design though.
Oh, maybe.
Given that the S10 has a new body.
Yeah, maybe so. I honestly, even if I did want to spend ultra money, which I super don't, it might be a little too big for me. That thing is huge.
Yeah, I've tried them on a couple of times, and it's pretty. My wrist is. I have a dainty wrist, and it is not a dainty watch. It's way bigger than like my Omega, my Speedmaster, any of that stuff, which is a pretty big watch. Anyway, AirPods. This is the first time we've had an AirPod update in a minute.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't say.
So AirPods Max, which is the over-the-ear headphone that's $550 and was expensive when they launched, and I guess thanks to the miracle of inflation, feels less expensive now than it did then. Is in new colors. It's still the same H1 processor that it had before, and it's still the USB-C. And now it's a USB-C connection instead of, I think it was a Lightning connection before, which is that's a good change. Doesn't seem worth an upgrade. This seems like a half step. I'm surprised it doesn't use the H2 processor that's in the AirPod Pro 2 and in the new AirPods 4, which we'll talk about in a sec.
And the Pro 2s have all been out for a while, right?
The Pro 2s have been out since like 2021 or 2022. Oh, wow. Like I bought Pro 2s a long time ago. Like I'm starting to hit, I'm not having real battery problems, but I'm having battery I'm noticing the battery doesn't last as long as they used to because they've been out for so long. It still feels like an incredible amount of money to spend on this. And my guess is that there's better stuff in the Beats line that uses the newer processor. It does have active noise cancellation now. or two times better active noise cancellation. And they're comparing it to the AirPod Pro 1 and the AirPods 4, which don't seal, which feels like a asterisk on an asterisk, versus the AirPod Pro 2, which have quite good noise cancellation. Anyway, I don't think most people. I think those are a specialty product.
Sure.
AirPods 4 are new. It's the update to this is the non-sealing rest in your ears kind of hard plastic style AirPod. They're $130 for the base model. If you pay $50 more, you get active noise canceling. The active noise canceling version also comes with the wireless charging case that works with key chargers, MagSafe watch or phone chargers. And that case is the only one that plays a sound when you use Find My to find it when you've lost your AirPods, which it turns out is an incredibly powerful feature. And they have added the stem control. So the AirPod Pros 2 have like a little touch area on the stem that you can click or swipe, and that lets you do volume control and pausing and playback and stuff like that. They also have the new UWB chip, so you can find them more precisely. The ultra wideband,
right?
Yeah. And I'm really curious how the active noise canceling works on these, since they're just hard plastic resting in your ear holes.
Okay, so this is my question, because I saw $180 on these for active noise canceling, and I think I'm just about at the end of the road for my wired Bose noise canceling headphones that I've had for 10 years. Like, I'm just kind of tired of dealing with cords on an airplane. So I was like, these are brand new, and 180 seems fairly reasonable. But I've never actually worn a pair of AirPods period before, so I didn't realize there was actually like the difference between the regular and the Pro on like fit and materials and how they rest in the ear and all that stuff.
Well, the Pros are like in ears with the little plastic, it's the soft plastic kind of silicone tips that stick in there, right?
And the regulars do not have any such thing.
The regulars just kind of nestle into the crotch of your ear with the noise point parting to the hole. I have a really hard time getting the hard AirPods and EarPods when they used to not be wired to ever stay in. Depending on what your last phone is, you might have a pair just sitting in a drawer someplace, because they used to ship them with the phone and then they stopped. The thing I'll say is the so the AirPod Pro 2s are often on sale for $190 because they are $250.
That's practically the same price. Although, like you said, they're quite old now, though. So you kind of wonder if they're due for an update.
Well, I'm going to tell you, they're the exact same processor that's in this. I don't know. They support all the adaptive stuff. The new AirPods 4 support the head gesture stuff that you only get with the AirPod Pro 2s, I think. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, that's good to know. That's kind of crazy that they are still trying to differentiate product lines with the kind of silicone ear seal, unless the argument is, hey, there are earbuds that you might not want to make a seal, which I guess I understand that. I think it's a preference thing, because a lot of people don't like having the sensation of the thing stuck in their ear. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. But even the $30 Soundcore earbuds that I bought to exercise in have got replaceable silicone tips. Yeah, so Apple does, the silicone tips are replaceable. I actually buy Comply foam ones for mine. And I think the only reason that these two products are separate is that some people like the ones that stick in their ears, or there's enough biological diversity in people's ear shapes that they can't make a one size fits all plastic one that nestles in. Yeah, in this case, I meant more just for the noise canceling, because without a good physical seal in your ear, sound is going to get in, even if no matter how many inverse waveforms you're playing. But that's the thing. Playing the inverse waveforms when there's leakage has traditionally not worked very well. So I wonder if they're doing something weird and projecting out too. Right. I don't know. We'll see when people start testing them. Yeah. And I think that's it. I think that's the whole. Last thing, the hearing aid thing. Yeah, I don't think they talked about this in the keynote, but no, I think this is separate. The AirPods Pro 2 were just approved as an over-the-counter hearing aid device. Yeah, by the FDA. Yeah, the FDA 2 years ago opened up over-the-counter hearing aids to people, and basically the idea is that when they flip the app on for this, you'll download a special app. It'll give you a hearing test, and then it will reconfigure the
transparency and adaptive transparency stuff to actually correct your hearing in the ranges that it's lost.
Yeah, I'm curious how well this is going to work. I have a family member with some Bluetooth hearing aids that they absolutely despise.
Everybody I know that has Bluetooth hearing aids absolutely despises them.
Yes.
I think this is why the FDA opened up hearing aids to over the counter, is to increase competition, and probably because there was a lot of lobbying.
Yeah.
So anyway,
that's cool.
Yeah. So that's an Apple event. That's a PlayStation event.
Products.
A lot of events.
Thousands of dollars worth of products.
Everything's expensive, Brad.
It sure is.
Remember when the iPhone came out and everybody's like, oh man, nobody's ever paid $600 for a phone.
Is that what it costs?
Just stupid. The launch iPhone cost $600.
Of course, granted, that was not far off from the PS3 that costs $600. So,
yeah, but I use my phone every day, man.
Well, yes. Yeah.
Let's see, they didn't, there's a bunch of deals. If you're buying a phone, if you're listening to this, the phone pre-order day already started, but they're doing $1,000 off for people on unlimited on AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon, and I think Boost. And then Apple's doing their normal stuff as well. Not the deals weren't quite as good on it. For once, the deals on the carriers were better than the Apple deals when I looked at them. But by now you probably, if you care about that, you probably already bought a phone.
Yeah. Yeah. Also though, just talking about the theme of this episode, like the increasing expense of stuff. Like I've pretty much started strategically timing my upgrades, like we said, with the watch based on trade-in value. Because that's just like priced into my upgrade timing at this point, is like, I want to make sure I get the next thing before the thing I've got is worthless, because taking $150 to $300 off the price of the next thing is pretty significant.
Well, that's the thing. And like my trade-in on my 15 Pro Max won't ever be higher than it is right now. But also this feels like the shittiest upgrade ever.
Right. Well, that's the thing. You have to balance how much you're going to get back with how much the new thing is even adding.
Yeah. And do I want to, like, honestly, do I want to take the 3 hours to move everything over and get the phone set up the way I like it again?
Yeah,
probably good.
Last time I upgraded, I did the like, hey, put the two phones near each other and let them sit for a while.
Yeah.
And everything was there. Even like, it was like an encrypted backup. It even brought over like passwords and two-factor stuff. Like it was all there.
There's always a couple of things that aren't quite right. Like I worry about the passkey stuff changing, although that's all in one password now. And the Google not passkey things that they safe lock or whatever it's called, it's always a problem. Anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, I guess that'll do it for us.
Yeah. Yes.
As always, thanks to everybody who listens to the show. Thanks for supporting the show.
Yes.
If you would like to find out how to support our show, which is a listener supported podcast, that means we wouldn't be here without you, the listeners.
Would not.
You can go to patreon.com/techpod. Again, it's patreon.com/techpod, and join the ranks of fabulous supporters and get access to the TechPod Discord, which is full of beautiful nerds who talk about beautiful nerdy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
You can also get access to the patron exclusive episode, which we have to record here before too long. Got a couple of weeks, I guess. And
talk about how I broke this keyboard.
Yeah. I pried all my keys off and put them in my ultrasonic cleaner a few weeks ago.
Great. Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it was horrifying and then fantastic.
Ugh.
I want to make a video for PC World, but my keyboard's not gross enough anymore. So
that's a good thing.
Yeah, but I want to make the video. I should have recorded it. Anyway.
Sure enough, it was trying to clean a couple of the keys in this keyboard, and boy, are these Apple keyboards not meant to be taken apart.
Why don't you just,
the real solution is don't eat at your computer.
Well, or turn it upside down and shake it to get the crud out.
There's zero leeway, or there's zero margin or gap between the housing of the keyboard and the keys.
Isopropyl alcohol and a Q-tip is what I always used on those kind of keyboards. Anyway.
Yeah.
Brad's travelist tab key is going to haunt him now and remind him of mistakes made in the past.
Yeah.
But you know what's not a mistake is supporting the show. And we want to offer a very special thank you to our executive producer tier patrons, including Andrew Slosky, Jordan Lippett, Bunny Fiend, Twinkle Twinkie, David Allen, James Kamek, and Pantheon, makers of the HS3 high-speed 3D printer. Thank you all so much.
Yeah, thank you.
And I guess that'll do it for us this week. We will be back next week. This month. September is over. Whoa. 15th.
Monthly format.
We'll be back next week with another episode of the Tech Pod. Thanks for listening, everybody. See you all then. Bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.